Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for today, Monday, July 14th, 2025. Today, we have a lot to talk about, obviously, with our area of interest off the southeast coast, because things are beginning to uptrend. First of all, in terms of organization today, this area of interest is already becoming better organized. In fact, it's outpacing a lot of the model forecasts so far, and the models themselves are uptrending, including the icon, which has especially been of a lot of attention over the past several days, since the icon has been showing a hurricane pretty much making landfall out of this system along the northern Gulf Coast. So we're going to talk about all the models, what to expect, and generally what is the latest on what is going on in the tropics today. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you sit back, get your seatbelt on, and let's go for the ride. Starting off with the National Hurricane Center homepage in the Atlantic. Obviously, we have our area of interest here off the Gulf Coast, or off the Florida East Coast, and it's going to make its way into the Gulf Coast. The latest 2 p.m. tropical weather outlook, which actually came out not long ago, this system is still at a 20% chance of development in the next 48 hours, and only a 30% chance of development in the next 7 days, although I think that chance is probably going to go up pretty significantly here very soon, especially because, number one, and I'm kind of surprised that they've not already done this. I'm kind of questioning as to why. I'm very suspicious, but they've not given this area of interest an invest tag yet, although I think that's probably going to change here very shortly. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if later this afternoon they officially give this the invest designation. Of course, the next number in the invest cycle is 93, and obviously it'll be named 93L because this is the Atlantic. But it's only a low chance for now, and that's probably going to change very quickly. And according to the National Hurricane Center, here's what they say: an area of low pressure located offshore of the east coast of Florida is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. This disturbance is forecast to move westward across Florida during the next day or so, and conditions appear favorable, and some development of this system is possible while it moves westward to west-northwestward across the northeastern and north-central portions of the Gulf during the middle to latter portions of the week. And then this last sentence is something that I'm going to be emphasizing a lot with this system, because it is a huge threat for not just Florida, but for the Gulf Coast as well. And we also have quite a bit of it to talk about today. But heavy rainfall could produce localized flash flooding over portions of Florida and the north central Gulf Coast through the middle to latter portion of this week. And I will go over in detail more on that last sentence in just a little bit. But really quickly, let's just really quickly see what's happening in the Eastern Pacific. And of course, nothing is expected for the next 7 days. The Eastern Pacific is dormant for now. Here's a satellite image of the Atlantic just to see what's going on with the overall bigger picture right now. And at least in the tropical Atlantic, there's not much happening, especially out here in the Eastern Atlantic. Things are nice and quiet. You have a lot of Saharan air moving off the coast of Africa, but that is to be expected for this time of year, and we typically watch for development the most right here across the southeast and closer to home, and that's exactly where we are watching for development right now. And let's actually zoom in on our area of interest here. Here it is off the southeast coast. And I actually am using Weather Nerds for this, because I usually use Tropical Tidbits for my satellite images, but on Weather Nerds I actually get to create a custom zoom in, so I decided to do it so we could get a better picture of what is going on with our area of interest, instead of having to use some sort of weirdly cropped satellite image. So here it is off the Florida coast. Quite a bit of convection today. It's very convectively active. You can see quite a bit of new thunderstorms beginning to blow up, and they're very persistent too. And they also have a lot of lightning strikes as well. So this has a lot of energy with it. already. And in fact, ASCAT, and I had this in my tweet that let me actually bring it up. It's by Alex Borham, if I can get him. But I just saw this tweet. A little bit of a mishap here, sorry. Last minute changes, but I just saw this tweet from Alex Borham, and he actually just made this a few minutes ago. And he mentioned that ASCAT hit not long ago, and he mentions that it's still an elongated trough with the northern end sticking out of the convection, and still has some work to do, but this very important last part, but seems to be overshooting the model so far. And this is a huge factor into the piece of how this is developing, because a lot of the models are not really that enthusiastic on this system. But so far, the system seems to be overperforming the models, just like pretty much every development that we've had this year so far has done so, especially with Chantal. They were only showing at best a weak system forming off the southeast coast that was broad, yet we ended up getting Chantal, which got to a solid 60 miles per hour. And I'll show you in a little bit, and I've been talking about it over the last several days. Conditions will be favorable in the Gulf. Sea surface temperatures will be very, very warm. So the fact that so far this is overshooting the models and already overperforming, and we're not even in the Gulf yet, is very interesting. And let me really quickly show you the ASCAT image here that Alex Borham is talking about. Already has a circulation of some sort, although there is a little bit of northerly shear right now, so this is not as organized as it could be. But this already has energy with it. This is already a pretty potent wave or trough, as you could clearly see by the satellite image. And I'll actually show you with the 850 millibar vorticity. It definitely has a decent vorticity signature. Definitely looks like a trough of low pressure is over the over just north of the Bahamas there. Obviously does not have the signature yet of a classic tropical depression or tropical storm. Still has some work to do, but it has energy. It's definitely a potent system. It's just a matter of how quickly will this be able to consolidate before it moves inland over Florida. And then once it moves over Florida and gets over the Gulf, how quickly will this be able to consolidate and develop before it then finally moves inland over the north central Gulf Coast. And the biggest thing related to this is just look at how warm the sea surface temperatures, and this is especially as to why I am very curious about this system, because as I mentioned, it's doing pretty well today. Kind of surprised that it's not already gotten an invest designation yet, because it definitely has a decent vorticity signature, definitely has decent convection, and already has a low-level vortex of some sort, although it's not fully developed yet. But especially once this gets into the Gulf, this is really going to have a lot of fuel to work with. And especially if this continues to overperform like it is today, because it will not actually move across Florida until tomorrow. And I've actually seen quite a bit of people suggest that potentially there is a small chance that maybe if this continues to improve rapidly as it has been doing so pretty much throughout today, maybe there's the potential that this could try to quickly develop before it moves over Florida and then moves into the Gulf. And then once it moves into the Gulf, it's going to have a lot of very, very warm sea surface temperatures to work with. The anomalies here, a lot of them, especially in the northeastern Gulf, where this really will be. A lot of sea surface temperature anomalies here as warm as 1, and even off the coast of Louisiana here, as high as 2 degrees Celsius above normal. And in actual sea surface temperatures, that translates to a huge bathtub of anywhere from 30, pretty much encompassing, once again, the entire northern and eastern Gulf, anywhere from 30 to even a few readings of 31 degrees Celsius just off the southeastern coast of Louisiana, right smack dab in the central Gulf Coast, where this is generally, whatever does develop, will generally track towards the next several days before moving inland by the end of the week. And not only this will contribute to the development of the system, especially if this is able to consolidate quickly, not only could the system actually ramp up and become a pretty decent tropical cyclone, as maybe what the icon is showing, and I'll actually show you the icon. I have it pulled up here in just a moment, and everybody's talking about the icon, so making sure to talk about it. But not only will these very warm sea surface temperatures contribute to quick development, it'll also contribute to the potential for lots of heavy rain over portions of the central Gulf Coast and inland of the coast as well. And that's something that we really, really, really need to emphasize, because we are going to have a lot to talk about when it comes to the rainfall, not just related to this over the next several days. And over the last several weeks, we've already seen what has come from devastating heavy rainfall, flash flooding, causing mass destruction in Texas, in New Mexico, in North Carolina, in Chicago, countless areas getting lots of heavy rainfall, and it produces a lot of damage. And it's only a fuel to the fire that we're potentially going to be talking about a pretty decent tropical system here as well. Maybe our next, maybe indeed at this point we could say our next tropical storm, probably forming very soon. And just really quickly to show you what's going on with the excessive rainfall. First of all, I want to actually point out today, because this is today's forecast for the excessive rainfall. And then this just goes to show how much we're going to be talking about this rainfall threat for the next several days. First off, over Florida, we have a slight risk for excessive rainfall because of our area of interest moving through Florida today and tomorrow. So that's going to produce a lot of heavy rainfall over the Florida Peninsula. In fact, I think it's already producing heavy rain there. And then in the Northeast, for DC to pretty much New York, the entire I-95 corridor from there under a moderate risk of flash flooding. And this is especially significant because it's the DC to New York corridor, very populated area. And especially if this pans out and we end up getting a huge flood event here today, that's definitely going to cause a lot of issues. So please keep in mind of this rainfall threat. And then back here down once again in Texas, unfortunately, they have another moderate risk, another significant risk for rainfall today. But the biggest concern will be, especially as we go through the day, especially as we go through the week across the Gulf Coast, rainfall actually continues for the mid-Atlantic. But day 2 over Florida, another slight risk. So today is not the only day we'll be dealing with flash flooding and heavy rain for Florida. It's going to be a multi-day event. And then eventually, as this system moves on into the Gulf, the threat expands from Florida into the northern Gulf Coast here. This is day 3, and then day 4, as we're starting to get the moisture from whatever tropical system is developing here in the Gulf as it moves inland. And then day 5, pretty much the entirety of southern and central Louisiana and even southern Mississippi under a slight risk for excessive rainfall. And especially if we get a pretty decent developing system here in the Gulf of Mexico, which I'll show you with the icon in just a moment, I would not be surprised if we get higher than a slight risk for excessive rainfall along the southern Gulf Coast here later this week, but we'll have to see. So now let's go over the models and what they are showing today. And of course, I'm going to start off with the icon because a lot of people are talking about the icon. And the icon has really been on this trend with showing a very strong storm in the Gulf for the past few model runs now. At first, everybody kind of brushed it off, and you might have saw me on Twitter. And by the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, please do so. I'm at Danilo Evangelista, so please make sure to follow me there. I post updates throughout the day, even when I'm not posting on YouTube. So please make sure to follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. But at first, when the icon was starting to uptrend significantly, a lot of people were brushing it off. Everybody was like, oh, this is maybe not really going to be, the icon is probably going to be wrong. No other model shows what is going on. But that was a few days ago, and now we are here on Monday. The system already seems to be overperforming and I'll show you the latest run of the icon. Still showing a pretty powerful, or I guess you wouldn't say that this is super powerful, but definitely a well-organized system heading into southeastern Louisiana as we get to the end of this week. Makes landfall on Friday at 984 millibars, so that's most likely a hurricane. And then it makes landfall, heads inland over the south, and then kind of slows down pretty significantly. This is Friday over Louisiana, then Saturday over northern Louisiana into Arkansas and western Mississippi, and then still over Arkansas and Mississippi as we head into Sunday, before finally moving on out into the Northeast and then bringing rain through portions across the deep South and Mid-South, and then eventually racing off on into the Northeast and then just being absorbed and not becoming much of a threat anymore for the South. But what I'm trying to point out is especially the icon, which so far was the only aggressive model on this. I'll be honest, maybe they're the ones that are actually showing the system the best, because they have definitely some sort of low pressure that's trying to develop now, which I just showed you with the ASCAP pass from Alex Borhem today. There's definitely a low pressure system already trying to form with this storm. It does try to consolidate a little bit as it heads into Florida and it moves into the Florida coast tomorrow morning. But then as it emerges over the Gulf, already right out the gate, 1,009 millibars, and very quickly consolidating. And then it has pretty much the entire day, Thursday, to consolidate very fast, and it pretty quickly intensifies and becomes a hurricane in Louisiana. Probably not sure about that hurricane part, although you never know given what I just showed you, very, very warm sea surface temperatures. So we'll have to see. But compare this to the other models, and this is what I really find very shocking about this. This is the GFS. I'm just going to really quickly run you through it. Absolutely nothing on the GFS. And the Euro, let me show you what the 60 Euro has. Pretty much nothing on the Euro either. So it's really only the icon that is showing this. And then you can even see here off the southeast coast, very, very, very broad low pressure here. Almost seems like it doesn't even consolidate at all, even though, if I'm being completely honest with you, let me just really bring you back to how it looks like right now. That definitely looks probably a little bit more organized than what either the Euro and the GFS are showing right now off the southeast coast. So we'll see what happens with this system, but at least maybe not the GFS and the Euro will get this right, but the icon is definitely uptrended quite a bit throughout the last several days. And I even think that the Euro AIFS has also come on board with showing development right before landfall later this week along the northern Gulf Coast. So we'll see what happens. I'll continue to keep you guys updated. But the last thing before I go, I really want to emphasize to you again, regardless of development, remember that last sentence from the National Hurricane Center Tropical Weather Bulletin. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall will be a threat for Florida and the Gulf Coast. And as I've been saying, rainfall is the #1 killer when it comes to tropical systems. Even when tropical systems are not actually tropical systems and they are just heavy rainfall systems, they can cause a lot of death and destruction. And we've been seeing that play out very much so over the last several weeks. So please do not let your guard down. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Lots to keep up here with the next week, over the next week, especially with this area of interest in the Gulf. So please, if you have not done so already, please take the time to like, comment, and especially subscribe to my channel for more information. I'm going to be posting videos throughout the week, and if something does indeed develop, I'll probably be posting more than one video per day throughout the week as well, to go over what is going to happen with that. And we might even be doing some live streams too, so stay tuned for that. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. And of course, I'll be back with more tomorrow. and I'll be on Twitter all day throughout the rest of today.